Hi, this is Dina LaPolte, entertainment lawyer and host of the Stiletto Room podcast, and now author of the new book, Street Smart, Succeeding in a Man's World, out now. You're listening to your morning coffee podcast with my friends Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart. Weekly music news for the new music business. Peace.
From Nathan McCartney, first week sales in music. The most misleading stat.
From Mandy DeLugdug over at Music Business Worldwide, Spotify brings music recommendations to ChatGPT via this new integration.
And from our friend Kristin Robinson over at Billboard, she says, I spent a day scrolling on Sora. The music industry should pay attention. Well, we are ready for episode 271. We are really glad you're here. We're going to start the show right about now.
Stand by for transmission.
This is London calling.
Wake up! The revolution is at hand!
Your morning coffee is on the air. 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 Standing by. Your morning coffee, the weekly music news for the new music business. It's the highly curated, agitated, advocated, moderated, and liberated digital music information that you need to know. We are your digital music authority. And now from our studios in Hollywood, California, here's your hosts, Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart.
And a big thanks for the cool intro, Dina. That is Dina LaPolte. She is an entertainment lawyer and artist rights advocate based here in Los Angeles. She has an amazing podcast called The Stiletto Room, and she just released her first book entitled Street Smart, Succeeding in a Man's World. And as I always like to point out, she started her career as a guitar player.
Yes, she did. And this Street Smart, this book, it's really a no-nonsense guide to thriving in any competitive industry, not simply the music industry. Dina didn't just break barriers, she bulldozed them, building her powerhouse law firm from scratch, representing global music and entertainment superstars, and earning her place as one of Variety, Hollywood Reporter, and Billboard's most powerful lawyers lists. Thank you so much, Dina.
Indeed, and she is a very cool cat, without a doubt. We're going to have another great special episode coming this week with Rio Cariff. He is the co-president of Music's Match. The conversation focuses on how Music's Match is revolutionizing how artists, rights holders, and fans connect by working with music publishers and DSPs to provide rights, data, and services to enhance the experience of music and generate royalties for music rights owners.
Yeah, Rio and I dive deep into the business of lyrics and how songwriters can turn their lyrics into strategic assets, in this streaming obsessed world, including, lyrics as critical metadata that enable discovery, recommendations, moderation, monetization, most importantly. This bonus episode drops this Wednesday morning. Don't miss it.
Do not miss it, exactly. And speaking of the bonus episodes, your conversation with Doc McGee is live. To say Doc is a true legend in the music business is really kind of an understatement, and definitely a character. And as you have mentioned to me, you guys, you've got to collect some of his wonderful sayings, his Docisms.
Yes.
He's managed some of the biggest bands in rock and roll history, including Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses, and of course, the hottest band in the world, Kiss.
That's right. On this special episode of the podcast, I sit down with Doc McGee, a longtime friend and colleague, and we talk about life, music, artist management, those Docisms that you just mentioned. We talk about dodgeball and QTR, which stands for Quality Time Remaining.
By the way, I was stunned when listening to that, how many artists over the years he has managed. Good God.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah, for sure. Well, Jay, the Peter Wolf Behind the Setlist podcast, which is done for Billboard, you caught up with the Jay Giles band frontman to talk about the stories in his memoir, Waiting on the Moon. Wolf talks about his friendships with Bob Dylan, Muddy Waters, Van Morrison. They're signing with EMI. It all happened by accident, he said, and I want accidents like that to happen to me.
Yeah, he is such a great interview. He has so many great stories, and his book isn't really a memoir like most memoirs you read. It doesn't start off, as him as a child and any of that. It's basically short stories on all these interesting people that he's met and had relationships with in one form or another. It's super, super interesting. We've got Music Tectonics conference is coming up November 4th through the 6th in Santa Monica. We always look forward to this conference. I hope you can make it. Dmitry Vitsa and his team put this thing on. He's going to pop on the podcast next week with us. But, you can meet your tech people, your music people at the Music Tectonics conference. You can share knowledge and do business with, some of the leading labels, people on the forefront of tech, fresh startups, investors, visionary analysts. All of them are going to be there.
It's really, really a blast to go to. So there's an exclusive offer, by the way, for the Your Morning Coffee readers. Get $50 off with the promo code COFFEE when you get your ticket, or see the link in the Your Morning Coffee newsletter. The sale ends today, October 13th, so purchase now before it slips away, and we will see you there.
Yes, we will. Can't wait. Some stories that caught our eye this week. One was BMG and Spotify Inc. new U.S. direct publishing licensing deal. And this is important because it was sort of one of the last ones. Spotify also signed a direct licensing deal with Cobalt, covering the U.S. last month, and inked direct publishing agreements with all three majors, including Sony, Universal, and Warner Chappell, and signed direct licensing deals with Spotify in January and February.
Right. There's also a SoundCloud announcement. SoundCloud has launched a group of new social discovery features on its service. They include 2 playlist features based on the currently popular tracks of every listener's friends and favorite artists. Like by Your Crew gathers tracks that are being liked by those social connections, while Liked by Playlists is a scrollable carousel of playlists based on those likes.
Liked by Your Crew. I like that one.
Yes.
There's also a trending track wall, and that shows, what's trending amongst each listener's community, as well as SoundCloud more widely. SoundCloud is also going to be recommending people to follow, or people that they believe you may already know, on its homepage, while the new quote-unquote Hot For You feature, that's going to present a single track every day based on each listener's personal tastes. Can't wait to check that out.
Indeed. There were also several stories about the Mechanical Licensing Collective, the MLC, this week. Before we talk about them, here's a quick refresher course on the MLC.
Right. The MLC, as you said, the Mechanical Licensing Collective, they're a nonprofit organization, and they were established under the Music Modernization Act, in 2018. So what do? Well, they issue licenses. The MLC issues blanket mechanical licenses to digital music service providers like Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube in the United States. They collect royalties. So, they're collecting the mechanical royalties owed by these DSPs when music is streamed or downloaded.
And they also distribute royalties. The MLC then pays these royalties to the correct songwriters, composers, and music publishers. They also created a public database. A key goal of the MLC was to create a public database of song ownership information to facilitate more accurate royalty payments.
Right. So the stories that mentioned the MLC this week in Your Morning Coffee, there were 3 of them. One had the headline, the Mechanical Licensing Collective has distributed $3 billion plus to songwriters and publishers to date. And that was by Murray Stassen over at Music Business Worldwide. The other one that caught our attention had the headline, 83% of writers have unpaid royalties in MLC's database. And that was by Paul Resnikoff, who runs Digital Music News. And then the third one, which we're going to talk about a little bit, is from Noah Ittman from Digital Music News. And this is one that a friend of ours commented on, so we brought him on the podcast to talk about it. The headline was Duplicate Works, Diverted Royalties, and What the MLC Isn't Catching.
Right. So Noah's article claimed this. The MLC's current systems allow duplicate and conflicting registrations and weak dispute handling, quietly diverting digital mechanical royalties, often away from rightful owners and toward bad actors.
Yeah, so, our friend Travis Rosenblatt is the founder of an incredibly useful platform for A&R research and scouting that a lot of big labels and distributors use. It's called Meddling. Amazing platform. You should check it out. But I spoke to Travis about Noah's article and the claims that were made in it because nobody knows this data better than I know than Travis. So let's listen in. Travis, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining me today. I appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So you and I were discussing this last week, this article from Digital Music News from Noah Ittman, and the headline was Duplicate Works, Diverted Royalties, and What the MLC Isn't Catching. And the core claim was sort of that the MLC's current systems, they might allow for duplicate, conflicting registrations and maybe not do a great job with this dispute handling. And the thing that grabbed me and I wanted to talk to you about was it said, quietly diverting digital mechanical royalties away from the rightful owners. So you follow the data closer than pretty much anybody I know. In your estimation, is royalty income quietly being diverted to the wrong people?
Oh, absolutely. I have a live dashboard of this, and currently 46% of royalties are flowing to the right people. So that's less than half. And everything else gets paid out just as a pro rata share of market share. So, the independents, even the larger indies are missing out on massive amounts of cash here.
What are some practical solutions?
People have to go in and make a stink based on defending what they own. That's really difficult. And that's asking a lot of individual songwriters or publishers to go in and do, because they have to check and defend their own registrations against people who are going to come in and try to claim it. And even if they have a valid registration, they have to see that it's getting tied to the right records. And they have to make sure that it's getting paid. And they have to do that right now in every territory on the planet. It's 230 some odd places they have to do this. It's just asking too much of people.
And when you say go in, you mean to like the Mechanical Licensing Collective, the MLC's sort of portal?
Yeah, and that just covers you in one place. I'm monitoring their data because they have to make it publicly available under the Music Modernization Act. But I think if you went in and checked out, PROs in the US or internationally, you're going to uncover a lot of the same issues.
So talk about where our listeners can learn more about what you do and how you're tracking things.
Yeah, right now I have just a publicly available service anybody can go in and look at. It just exists at a subdirectory of my other business, but it's just meddling.co, meddling.co/fraud. And it'll show you exactly what is getting currently accurately matched, what's not getting matched, how much money is getting diverted, who it's getting diverted from, and which companies are allowing them to do this.
Well, keep up the great work, Travis. I really appreciate you taking your time today.
Thanks very much, Jay.
Wow. Well, big thanks to Travis. That is really important work you are doing. There was a fantastic piece in Hypebot this week entitled "The FTC Calls Speculative Tickets Deceptive Violation of Rules." So our friend attorney Chris Castle has argued that selling ghost or speculative tickets is like charging consumers for something that doesn't exist. As part of recent junk fees rules, the U.S. FTC calls spec tickets deceptive, a violation of rules, and warns against the practice.
Right. The Federal Trade Commission's final junk fees ruling focuses on price honesty in two sectors: live event tickets and short-term lodging. It doesn't directly outlaw speculative ticket listings, but the commission says the quiet part out loud. If you tell people tickets are available when they're not, you've likely crossed the line into deception under the rule's misrepresentation provisions, which Chris lists in the article.
So call it dicta if you like. It's the agency's explanation of how it reads the new junk fee rule, not a separate prohibition. But it's useful dicta that points everyone to the same place we've been pointing for years that Heather Van Dyke and I recently discussed on our Trouble with Tickets panel at the Texas Entertainment Law Institute. You don't need a new statute to stop spec listings that pretend inventory exists.
Yeah, Chris goes on to write that you need truth in representations. And when sellers claim they have tickets or can deliver them at a stated price when they don't, that's classic deception under the FTC Act. And more to the point for private litigants, plain old Blackstone-style common law fraud. The FTC even illustrates the point in its business guidance. A speculative ticket seller that advertises tickets to a sold-out concert it doesn't actually have is misrepresenting availability. You can read that whole article. There's a link in your morning coffee.
Yes, indeed. Well, we're big fans of Hit Songs Deconstructed, and last week they posted a free report. The link, by the way, is in the Your Morning Coffee newsletter. The Max Martin Evolution, with 27 Billboard Hot 100 #1 hits and 79 top 10s, he stands among the most successful songwriters and producers of all time. Packed with charts and visuals, this report traces his remarkable career and reveals how he's both adapted to and often defined pop's ever-changing landscape. And that is one busy man.
Yes, one of the greats for sure. And this platform, this website, it's called Hit Songs Deconstructed. You have to check this out. It's one of my favorite places to visit. It really helps songwriters, producers, and music industry pros with the insights and tools needed to create music that competes at the highest levels. Their mission is to help you by deepening your understanding of the craft and trends behind today's most successful songs. So visit hitsongsdeconstructed.com to learn more.
And be prepared to go down the rabbit hole because you will eventually come up. But man, it is fun rabbit hole to jump into without a doubt.
Yes,
great
sir.
information. Hey, let's thank our sponsors, Jay, before we get rolling. We are so lucky to have them. As we like to say, we have friends in high places.
We sure do. We're sponsored by Hypebot. Since 2004, Hypebot has chronicled the new music industry and the trends and technologies that are changing how music is discovered, consumed, marketed, and monetized. It's edited daily by our friend Bruce Houghton with help from Alana Bonilla. Hypebot and sister blog Music Think Tank are published by live music discovery and marketing platform Bands in Town.
Yes, indeed. Bands in Town. Over 90 million live music fans trust Bands in Town to get personalized concert alerts, recommendations, and messages from their favorite artists. It is the #1 artist service platform connecting over 650,000 artists with their super fans. Managers, labels, agencies, and artists access their own dashboard to manage and promote their tour dates across all platforms. And yes, it's Saturday, which means I get to hang out with my good friend Jay Gilbert as we record this 271st episode of actually more than 300. Jay is a music industry consultant, the curator of the weekly Your Morning Coffee newsletter, and a former executive with Universal Music, Sony Music, and Warner Music Groups, and the most passionate Minnesota Vikings fan I know.
Thank you very much. And I get to do this podcast every week with my good friend Mike Etchart. And we typically talk for an hour before we even hit record. And we did that this morning. We had some coffee and talked about life and music. And he's already knee deep in this Cars book. I just bought it, so I need to catch up.
It's a good one.
I'm really looking forward to that book. Mike is a longtime host of Sound and Vision Radio, formerly of SST Records, Warner Music, Capital EMI, and Universal Music Groups. We're going to jump into our stories. Our first story this week is a good one, and it's a lead story in the newsletter. The headline is First Week Sales in Music, the Most Misleading Stat, and that's by Nathan McCartney. We're going to talk to Nathan this week for the podcast. He's a former head of music at Verizon, former SVP of commerce at Rock Nation. He's got a really great resume in the music and entertainment field. I will tell you that this particular piece has some of the most fantastic graphics I've ever seen in an article, and you really need to see it. We're not going to go through the entire thing here, but we're going to give you some highlights.
He starts by saying art is now judged by performance before it is even consumed. Fans, critics, and media personalities weigh in on first week sales and pass judgment without ever listening to the music.
Right. He kicks this thing off by talking about how years ago you needed a SoundScan account or an insider email to even see the numbers. Today they're everywhere, and they've turned into what he calls rage bait.
Right. So there is a class of so-called super fans who are not fans at all. They do not celebrate their favorite artists. They tear down anyone else who wins. This is not fandom. It is obsession that metastasizes into hate. Nathan says, I call it being obsessed.
Yeah, obsessed. And one of their favorite weapons is first week sales. Numbers without context mislead. Most who push these narratives don't understand how the numbers are calculated. First week sales are a vanity metric from another era. In today's music business, the engine is catalog, not frontline, which makes first week sales a poor way to measure success.
Right. What follows is a breakdown of how the game works. He says how SoundScan and first week sales become public, how sales are calculated now, the levers labels pull to game the system, why first week sales are a fight for relevance for superstars while discovery for new artists takes time, why some slow starts go on to win big, how Drake, the biggest streaming artist of all time, compares week one to his totals, and what funds, labels, and investors actually look at when they value a catalog.
Yeah, this is such a great piece. He talks about initially that in the past few months, Stray Kids, Travis Scott, Jack Boys, Gunna, Big X, The Plug, and Somber all dropped new projects. Each one was judged by the same metric, first week sales. The headlines made it clear who had the strongest debut, and for some, that was enough to crown the best album. On week one, the scoreboard looks final. In reality, it's only the opening scene. And he talks about, the first week numbers for Stray Kids was 316,000. Travis Scott and Jack Boys was around 251,000. And Gunna was, about 81,000. He just points those things out.
Right, but he says once the headlines faded and the charts rolled over, the story shifted. So Stray Cats Karma, 457,000 total. That's up 45%. Travis Scott and Jack Boys 2, 453,000 total. That's up 80%. And Gunna, the last one, 400,000 total, up almost 400%.
Yeah, over that first week. Some projects peak in week one, others climb for months. Super important point. In the streaming era, momentum compounds. Word of mouth, playlists, discovery stretch an album's life long after release. First week shows who makes the loudest entrance. Total sales show who can last.
Right. Well, he talks about the SoundScan revolution. You must remember, before May 25th of 1991, charts were built on phone calls.
Yeah.
Billboard called record stores and asked employees like Jay Gilbert to estimate sales.
Yeah.
Labels influenced results with bribes. Human error and bias made the numbers unreliable. Rock, hip hop, and country were consistently undercounted.
I worked at Tower Records at the time. I got those calls, and this is 100% correct. Well, he goes on to write that then came SoundScan, barcode scanners at the register. They brought in, computerized tracking. For the first time, the data was hard proof. The revelations were immediate. Country albums that rarely appeared in the top 50 surged. Lisa Fisher's record dropped 30 spots overnight. Paula Abdul's #1 single would have landed at number 25 in actual sales. SoundScan revealed that albums open like movies, massive first weeks followed by steep drop-offs. Concentrated fan energy showed up instantly. For the first time, the industry could actually measure it. Week one became the scorecard.
Well, he says then versus now. In the 1990s, scarcity made first week critical. Shelf space was limited and albums were pushed to the back once the first rush passed. Radio controlled discovery. Inventory was finite. and sales were front-loaded into release week and dropped off quickly.
Yeah, in 2025, abundance makes first week irrelevant. Shelf space is infinite, with more than 99,000 tracks uploaded every day. Discovery is algorithmic, and songs can break months after release. Inventory is unlimited, streams build slowly, and catalog often outperforms frontline. Revenue has shifted from new releases to catalog, yet we still measure success like it's 1991.
Very interesting. So next, how sales are calculated. Let's talk about chart units. First week is defined as streams, downloads, and sales from Friday through Thursday of release week. Pre-release singles do not count toward the charts. Those streams only apply to total consumption, not first week positions.
Right. And let's talk about streaming conversion. We've talked about this before. You know, the amount of streams that equal one album unit. Well, if it's a premium stream, meaning that you're paying for it, that takes less streams. It takes 1,250 to equal one album unit. The free, or ad-supported, and that includes YouTube as well as the Spotify ad-supported version, it takes more, and that's 3,750 to equal one album unit. And then for those that still deal in downloads, 10 digital track download sales equal one album unit. Important to know.
Right. Well, and there are restrictions. No more than 4 copies per customer per format count. Also, tracks must run at least 90 seconds to generate streams, and orders of 10 or more units are disqualified.
And he points out, why does this matter? First week only measures fresh consumption over 7 days typically. It ignores months of buildup, and artists have to pack momentum into release week and pre-release singles that can't help boost the chart.
Right. So what about rules and levers that shape first week totals? Pre-orders. Only pre-orders shipped or delivered during release week are counted. Anything that ships later does not apply.
Right. It doesn't matter when it was purchased. And let's talk about pricing. Digital albums must be priced at $7.99 or higher, so they don't sell them at 20 cents and sell a lot more. Physical albums and vinyl must be priced at $15.99 or higher. Singles must cost at least 39 cents to count towards TEA, that's track equivalent album, that album unit we talked about. And anything priced below these thresholds is disqualified.
Right. What about fan packs? Well, they've been chart eligible since 2023. They're defined as an album bundled with merch that has at least a $3.49 markup over the merch alone. There's a maximum of 2 fan packs per release. Only physical albums sold direct to consumers qualify and must be pre-approved by Luminate at least 7 days before sale.
Right. And finally, let's talk about variants and other formats. Digital variants are capped at 4 per album under the 2025 rule. Physical variants, color vinyl variants, they have no limit but must ship within 7 days of purchase, and each format purchase counts as a separate unit.
Well, and there are reporting deadlines. All sales must be reported by Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern to be included in Monday's charts. And venue sales only count if processed through approved scanning systems like at Venue. There are prohibited bundles. Albums bundled with concert tickets, NFTs, or meet and greets do not qualify for chart eligibility.
Right. And so why does that matter? The rules create the levers artists and labels use to boost first week numbers. Variants, fan packs, pre-orders, and formats all shape the headline, but don't reflect a lasting impact. First week is about playing the system. Catalog is what proves the music's value over time.
But what about the slow build? Raven Lene. So for developing artists, first week means little. Raven Lene released Bird's Eye back in August of 2024, and it did not chart. Her single, Love Me Not, gained little traction until a mashup on TikTok in 2025. The song cracked the Billboard Hot 100 and drove the album to 266,000 units. 90% of its consumption came the year after its release.
That's a good point. And if you judge by first week alone, she looked like a flop. In reality, she became a platinum artist with momentum still building. And there are a lot of these slow starts that he points out in this article, and I thought this was really fascinating. The industry is full of slow starts that grew into massive wins, no matter the genre of music. And I'm going to read off just a few of these, like Morgan Wallen's If I Know Me, first week was 2,700, and it built to, almost 6 million. Dua Lipa, Future Nostalgia, that started off with 66,000 and grew to almost 5 million. Noah Kahan, Stick Season, started off with a week one of 21,000 and grew to 4.5 million. And the list goes on and on.
It does. Well, let's talk about Drake, the streaming king. So Drake is the biggest streaming artist of all time. His first weeks are massive, but they're still only a fraction of his totals. So check this out. His album Take Care, 631,000 the first week, went up to an 11.4 million total. That's just 5%. Then that first week was only 5.5% in week one of what it eventually sold. Scorpion, 732,000 his first week, went again over 11 million total. That first week was just 6.6% of what eventually it would sell. So the pattern repeats. Even for the biggest artists in streaming history, week one barely matters. But catalog does.
Catalog does. So what actually counts? He writes that I have worked on catalog acquisitions. Not once did first week sales come up in due diligence. What matters is staying power, how the music performs year after year, how it stacks against others from the same era and genre, whether one hit carries the load or the whole catalog performs. This is what labels, publishers, funds, and investors pay for, the full picture, not a headline that can be gamed. First week sales are noise. Catalog is the business. There's a link to this entire article in your morning coffee. I highly recommend that you read it. The graphics are stunning, and we're going to have the author on the podcast next week.
Catalog is the business. Absolutely. So true.
Yeah.
So true.
And, we have a couple more stories for you. The next one I thought was really interesting and got a lot of press this last week. And this particular article was from Mandy DeLugdug over at Music Business Worldwide. And the headline was, Spotify brings music recommendations to ChatGPT via new integration. So Spotify free and premium users can now link their accounts to ChatGPT and receive personalized music and podcast recommendations directly within their ChatGPT conversations via this new integration.
So the Spotify and ChatGPT feature became live in 145 countries this last Monday, allowing users to request specific tracks, albums, or playlists, or ask for recommendations based on mood or genre. The integration is available across web and mobile platforms, including iOS and Android devices.
So when users mention Spotify in a ChatGPT prompt, they'll be asked to connect their accounts on first use. After that, they can request music or podcasts through conversations through ChatGPT. They can type in text prompts like, Spotify, I need something to keep me in the zone. Can you pull up a focus mix? Tapping a recommendation opens a Spotify app for playback.
Right. The initiative drew support from Universal Music Group, with a company spokesperson telling Music Business Worldwide, we're supportive of these types of integrations as they offer a pathway for fans to connect with the artists they love, as well as to move fluidly from discovery to enjoyment of new music, and all within a monetized ecosystem.
Right. They went on to say that while it scratches the surface of the enormous potential of AI, it's a positive step forward that reinforces the principle that artists must be compensated for all uses of their music on all platforms. The ChatGPT connection is optional, and users can disconnect it anytime they want.
So Sora was in the news this week. There were several stories. OpenAI's likeness protections don't apply to dead celebrities, including Tupac Shakur, Michael Jackson, and Kurt Cobain. That was in Digital Music News. Over in Music Business Worldwide, an article entitled OpenAI's Sora promises unprecedented realism in AI-generated videos. Talent giant WME just opted out its entire roster.
Right. And the final story was from Kristin Robinson from Billboard. And she has the machine learning's email that we highly recommend. and she's got a new podcast. Anyway, her headline was, "I spent a day scrolling on Sora. The music industry should pay attention." And instead of going through the article, she sort of gave a recap on socials this week that I think really nailed it. So let's listen to Kristin in her own words.
Music industry really needs to be paying attention to Sora. Here's why. So this is Sora 2, a new video generation platform from OpenAI. But it doesn't just generate videos, it also is a social media app a la TikTok, except for all the videos are AI. Here's where it gets messy. I quickly found from scrolling on Sora that most of the videos have some sort of background music component to them. Most of the time this music is unrecognizable and kind of muffled and bad quality, but also sometimes it's not. Digital media analyst and content creator Jules Tirpak found that when she generated this video of herself on a park bench listening to music, saying that she wanted rap music, it gave this like very odd, weird version of What You Know About Love by Pop Smoke. Very recognizable instantly when you listen to it. Also found cases like this where Tupac Shakur was deepfaked, and someone did the Rickroll meme, you know, the song Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley. They basically put Sam Altman's face onto what appears to be Rick Astley's body, singing a version of Never Gonna Give You Up. Not exactly right, but it sounds like the song. All points to the fact that it seems like Sora might be training on copyrighted material to be able to generate music like this. But to date, no major music company has ever announced that they have a license with OpenAI. And while the issue of AI training is still under debate, this is the reason why the three major music companies did sue Suno and Udio last year, which are both AI music companies. Rights aside, here's another reason why it could be very disruptive. As we all know, music is currently in like the TikTok era. Artists and the companies that represent them spend so much money paying influencers to use their song in the background of videos, creating fan pages, creating burner accounts to even further the music on the platform in the hope that it goes viral. I mean, what if Sora took off and it either ate into a large chunk of time that people otherwise would have spent on TikTok or other social media platforms? Or what if it becomes like the TikTok? I know that right now it seems like AI slop and like that seems impossible, but like Gen Alpha was raised on world building video games and they like stuff like Italian brain rot. So I think anything is possible. That poses a really big threat to the status quo of digital marketing in the music industry. Because for the most part, like I said, this music is like custom generated for each video and it's kind of generic, but it's custom scored to like the actions in the video. This could greatly decrease the amount of time that music fans have to be exposed to music online. Yeah, maybe there will come a time when OpenAI does licenses with all the music companies and they create a library, kind of like what TikTok has, where you can select copyrighted songs that are really wonderful to put in the background of videos. But for right now, it feels like custom scores are kind of the thing here. So anyways, I believe this is very much so worth paying attention to if you work in music. If you want to get all the insights that I have in this story, head to the link in my bio and click Billboard author page and it should pop right up.
You can check out that article from Billboard, and it is featured, of course, in the Your Morning Coffee newsletter, so do check it out. It is fascinating. Well, Jay, it is time to wrap up the show. If you enjoyed the show, please tell one friend. Jay and I would certainly appreciate it. And, of course, big thank to our sponsors, our good friends over at Hypebot and Bands in Town, and, of course, music from the Licorice Quartet. And on behalf of my good friend Jay Gilbert, I'm Mike Etchart. Thanks for listening in this week, and we'll be back next week on the Your Morning Coffee podcast.
You've been listening to Your Morning Coffee, the weekly music news program for the new music business. Join Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart next time for the digital music news you need to know.